How did it feel? It felt amazing, you know. I mean, I always wanted to fight in the UFC. I'd gone on the Ultimate Fighter, I'd won the Ultimate Fighter, you know. And then they were using my face on posters launching in the UK, you know. And you know, at times I had to stop and pinch myself, you know. It was unbelievable, you know. Sometimes, you know, I just couldn't believe it. And even still now, you know, I mean, I've fought main event twice, I've been co-main event 3 times, I'm fighting at UFC 100, you know, it just never ends, you know what I mean? And, you know, you can't achieve all this on your own. Number one, there's been a lot of hard work and determination. There's been a little bit of good luck along the way. I've been fortunate enough to have a very strong, focused team behind me that have helped me along every inch of the way. You know, so, you know, I feel like a very lucky man. For me, you know, fighting on the small shows in the UK at the start of my career, it was very special, you know. I mean, it was, you know, I was new to the sport then. Even though I've been training, you know, a type of mixed martial arts for many years, you know, fighting actual professional mixed martial arts was new to me. It was very exciting, and you know, I met a lot of good friends from, you know, the MMA community in the UK. You know, they were good fights. I won most of them by knockout or TKO. So yeah, very, very. Well, obviously when I started out as a professional in 2003, you know, there wasn't too many shows around, and right from the start I trained full time. I quit work and went for it 100%, you know, and dedicated myself to the sport. And at times, you know, for example, you know, like, I don't know, just talking to somebody, they say, what do you do for a living? I'd say, well, I'm a mixed martial artist. And they say, what, you know? They wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about. And you'd have to break it down to the lowest common denominator in the end and say, oh, I'm a cage fighter. You know, and they'd be like, oh, so you're a lunatic or whatever, you know? Bloody hell. What Shut up! Is that Ross? Showing off. Is that Ross? I knew it'd be Ross. I'm going to do an interview here, Ross. Fucking Ross Pearson showing off again. Yeah, and you know, you'd have to say you were a cage fighter, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're one of those lunatics." One of the changes is that these days, you know, there's a lot more public awareness about the sport, you know, and you can say I'm a mixed martial artist or a UFC fighter, and people know what you do, and they have a little bit more respect for you as a fighter and as an athlete. You know, you're not branded as a bloody thug or a lunatic. Obviously now the sport's way more widespread and mainstream. You know, there's several good magazines out there now. Fighters Only, obviously, at the top of the pile. Many websites, clothing lines, I don't know, you name it, you know, there's everything attached. There's a whole lifestyle surrounding MMA, and there was that in the early years, but nothing to how it is now. How else has it changed in the UK? I don't know, you know, I mean, obviously the amount of people training the sport, the amount of gyms there is. I mean, when I started training at the Wolf Slap, that was the only, you know, place of its kind really at the time, and now here we are in the Ultimate Training Centre in Birmingham, beautiful gym, you know, and there's many of these up and down the country, and now you'll probably find, you know, somewhere that you can go train MMA, I'd say in probably nearly every town in the country now, you know, and a lot of people are starting to learn MMA from a very, very young age, you know, so basically the difference has been the growth of the sport, and it's been huge.
And of course at the time you were in SOF 3, it probably...
That's a difficult question. It depends on the shows, you know what I mean? See, the thing is these days, when I was getting into it, you know, it didn't have, you know, the big cool image, you know, that it does have now, you know. Obviously now the UFC is, you know, gone so global, and you know, it's not quite mainstream, but it's bordering on mainstream, and you know, there's all the clothing attached to it, and the full subculture and lifestyle, you know. So you know, now a lot of people are watching it on TV and want to do it. When I got into it, and a lot of people, you know, back in those days that were fighting, they weren't doing it, you know, because of the image. They were doing it because they were, you know, they wanted to fight mixed martial arts, and that's what they did, you know. So, to answer your question, I think it depends on the shows. You see some shows where some guys, you know, he's maybe only been training a few weeks or whatever, and he's fighting on a show which obviously he doesn't know what he's doing. But alternatively, on some of the, you know, the more well-respected shows that have been around for a long time, the standard of fights is fantastic, you know, and some of the fighters that fight regularly in the UK, you know, are well at the standard of UFC fights. So, you know, it all depends what shows you.
to
Yeah,
compete?
yeah, no, you're probably right. I remember when I went down there for the light heavyweight tryouts, there was only 2 or 3 of us turned up. You know, I mean, to be fair, I had beaten most of the other light heavyweights that might have turned up. So, but and again for the middleweights, you know, there wasn't that many. For Tough 9, when you had the tryouts, there was way more people, and again that's a sign of the growth of the sport. And again, another sign of the growth of the sport. You know, me in my everyday life, day-to-day life these days, it's crazy. You know, I mean, people regularly want autographs or posters or whatever. You know, I don't think that's a sign of me being famous or anything like that. It's a sign of a growth of the sport. You know, people are watching the sport now. You can probably find it on TV most nights if you know where to look. You know. For me, when I joined the Wolves, you know, it came at a very crucial time in my career. You know, I was doing well. I'd won the Cage Edge belt and I was winning all my fights. You know, but I needed a lot more help at the time in terms of developing my skills. You know, my jiu-jitsu, my wrestling, and just, you know, working out in a cage every day, things like that. You know, these are massive differences. You know, if you don't train in a cage, you know, then you're at a big disadvantage. So, you know, when I joined the Wolves, ever since then, you know, like I said, it came at a crucial time, and it was a, you know, I wasn't looking for the Wolves when I joined them. You know, I was looking for sparring, but I went down there and I saw the facilities, I saw the training, the coaches that they had there, and the training partners and the facilities, as well as the management side of things. You know, and to be honest, you know, I was absolutely blown away, and you know, I thought I'd be a fool, you know, not to want to be a part of this. And, you know, I'm from the Northwest and the gym is in the Northwest. At that time I was travelling down to Nottingham, you know, and training down there, you know, with some guys, you know, that couldn't offer me what the Wolves were offering me, to be honest. I mean, the Wolves, to be honest, has got a pretty much open door policy. You know, as long as, you know, you're competent, you know, we'll let you come down and train. You know, with the pros in the morning. You know, if you're not at a level that's, you know, to be honest, that's going to be of use to the rest of the squad, then maybe, you know, you can go learn a little bit in the evenings. But to be honest, you know, the guys that come down and train with the Wolves, we're very lucky. We've got great training partners, and yeah, to answer your question, we haven't had a problem with roughnecks, as you say, just coming in and wanting to prove themselves. You know, I think the Wolves there is a hardcore gym, you know, hardcore gym for a hardcore sport, and I think people know better than, you know, to come down to the Wolves there and try and prove themselves a hard man, because you know, it ain't going to work out. They'll quickly realise that they're in the wrong place.